in alignment with the talk that we did on karma and self-responsibility, we'll do an exercise that has two elements to it. The first element of it is we'll just go through our midline of our body, go through our own individual centers or parts of the body, and we're going to just ask ourselves as we go through each point, do we feel centered, do we feel balanced, or do we feel unbalanced? Okay? And we're going to notice as we go through from above our heads to below our feet, which of the body centers in our body feel really good and really clear and very calm. So we're thinking about following a line through the body, and then we're going to feel a response and describe that response. Don't react to it. So if you go to an area of your body, let's say you start above your head and you imagine the line, it's easy. Then you go down and you get to the throat, and suddenly it's uneasy and difficult. Patients or people will often say to me, I can't do it, visualization doesn't work. But then you say to them, but if it does work, because otherwise you wouldn't have imagined it above you without any problems. This is what humanity does. As soon as you get into a difficulty, the human being goes into reaction. Okay, it starts reaction and tries to justify why it can't do it. If you notice that happening for you, just don't justify it. Imagine you're an artist and you're describing a scene. You describe what you feel, don't interpret it. Because if you interpret it, you're trying to make it something it isn't. Okay, and that's usually wrong. But an artist would say, let's say you go to your throat center, and I'll give you an example, then we'll do this. And instead of thinking of a nice balanced point in the center of the throat, let's say it feels dark, smoky, yucky, a little bit off to the left. It doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel choky and like swallowing, makes you feel like anxious and whatever. When you describe that to yourself, it's like describing a scene or a movie or an art form, a horrible art form maybe. But when you're doing that, you're actually describing what it's like in that part of your body, in that environment, which means you're acknowledging how it makes you feel. Now, you can acknowledge how it makes you feel without actually getting reactive to it. It's no worse than opening a door to a bedroom and looking in and seeing the room full of garbage and muck. A lot of people will see it and shut the door and they go, ugh, I don't want to do it, it's too hard. But it's not scary to see the muck. It's scary, however, if you make yourself think you have to deal with it in a day or straight away. And that's what a lot of people do. They see it and they react and they run away. But why can't you open the door, look at the pile of muck and say, you know what, there's a pile of muck there. Doesn't look very nice, looks a bit yucky. So what? What can I do about it? Well, right in front of me is a little bit of muck. I'm going to take that bit out, take the muck out of the bucket, out of the room, clear it, see if it's useful, throw it away, burn it up if it's not helpful, use it if it's useful, put it back in the right place. Tomorrow you'll have a room full of muck minus one little bit of problem, 1% healthier. If you did that every day, if you cleared a little bit out every day and didn't put any muck in, after 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years, eventually there's no muck left in the room. What have you done? You've just done a little bit of balancing every day, one step at a time. It's not scary, it's not difficult, it's not upsetting. You just deal with it. And whatever you see, you might start sorting through the muck and say, well, what's stuff from the garden shed doing in the bedroom? You start realizing there's things that are in there that don't belong there. And you just put them back where they belong. So you want to make the process of meditation informative, enlightening, but not scary. And to not make it scary, just go in to describe what you feel, describe what you see, describe what happens. Don't interpret it. So here we go. Imagine above your head a beautiful sun. In the heavens, in the universe, in the solar system, right above, as high as you can, beyond any stress and strain. It represents your ideal healthy self. Now, as a bit of an overview, before we even start, imagine there's a beam of light coming from that central sun above your heads, right through the middle of your spine, through your body, right down to your feet. Imagine you're standing on this big bright ball of light. Let's say it's a golden sun above and a white ball of light below your feet, representing Mother Earth, Gaia, the natural nature harmony Earth, as a healthy blueprint for the Earth. So before you even start, think of the sun and the source above, the Earth is a bright white light below, And a midline energy, like a plumb line or a central line or laser line of light, that connects the two. Now, the reason I'm doing that is to divide your awareness so you don't get over-focused on one point, but also to get a bit of an overview before you even start of how you feel in your own midline. So when you're imagining a line connecting the sun and the earth through your body, not in front of the body, not behind the body, but through it, is that line straight or crooked? Does it feel like it goes through some parts of your body easier and skip around other parts of the body? So, for example, I'll give you an example of what I'm feeling for the group today, right now. The sun above feels bright, the earth below feels not as bright, but it's there. And when I imagine a line, it's a little bit shadowy and a little bit hard to be visualized as being straight. I visualize sort of a line vaguely going off to one side a little bit, not so much to the other. So notice if that's the case. So you'll notice if the whole line feels centered. And for some of you, as you imagine a line going through your body, you might be able to connect the line through some parts of the body, and then suddenly it disappears in other parts of the body, and then you pick it up again. So notice the parts that are out of sync. Notice the parts that are easy. Is the plumb line centered or off balance? Does it feel comfortable or not comfortable? Is it flowing like a river, or is it stuck, not flowing? That's the first thing. Just answer those questions to yourself. That's your overview of your centered or not centered self. Now, we're going to go back up to the sun above the head. Imagine there's this beautiful sun above the head representing your ideal health. That's that connection to the source, if you like. Does that feel centered? Does that feel radiant? Does it feel flowing? Does it feel comfortable? I'd say yes, that feels pretty nice to me for the group. Is it easy to imagine or not easy? Now, I'll talk about what I feel for the group, but you have to go with what feels right for you. So if you disagree with me or feel different, don't assume I'm correct. Go with what feels right for you, and notice as you go through your body, what areas do feel right for you, what areas feel healthy. At the end of this, decide what's the healthiest and the least healthy point. Now, I talked about centering. As you go through this central line, I talked about the criminal with the bad back in the analogy before. If you bring the person back to balance, you can bring your centers back to balance. It's like remembering where you've parked the car. But to do that, you need to know where you are, where you're going, and the relationship in between. So if we go from the sun above the head to the crown, let's say we take an awareness to the crown, and you think of a light on the center of the crown at the top of the head. Now, when you imagine that light on top of your head and a little ray of light connecting the sun above to the crown, is that point on top of your head right in the center, or is it a little bit left or a little bit right, a little bit forward or a little bit back? So look at the position of it. So for example, if I imagine a light on the crown, it feels to me pretty light, pretty bright, a bit smaller than the one above in size, but it's a little off to my left, maybe a few millimeters left. It's not quite in the center. So it should be in the center. It's a few millimeters or half a centimeter to the right, left. That's where the car is, where the car should be, and then you know the relationship. If you want to get a quick balancing happening, what you do is you notice both. You allow it to be pushed to the left or away from the right, or whichever way it goes easily, go with the ease. It'll stop at a point. That's your relative balance point. By noticing the two, you might notice just by being aware of it, it starts to self-correct and it'll find its own way home. You can't force it, you have to allow it. If you find yourself trying to push it back, it means you're taking over and trying to control the situation. Think of it like calling to a child in the woods. All you have to do is hold an awareness of home, and that child will hear your voice and find a way back. You just have to keep the signal going until it finds its way back and anchors. This is what we're doing. So that's what you need to know. That'll bring you to balance. The other thing that can happen is once you get into balance, it's like you're aligning that center with the sun above. The light of the sun above might flow in and start to fill up and spread out and radiate through that little mini sun on the crown and start to heal and clear things. So you get this centering idea, then you get a healing idea. Centering is bringing it to neutral, balance. Healing happens if the person is willing to allow themselves to transform the muck that's in their buckets and clear. Okay? So let's move on from the crown. Take your awareness from the crown into the inside of your head. You can imagine if you want, opening a trapdoor in the crown, drop a light inside the head. Imagine there's this sort of little mini sun in the center of your head, as if it's inside a room looking out. Now, when you take the awareness inside your head, how does it feel? Does it feel easy to move from the crown to the head, or does it repel you a little bit hard? Does it feel centered in the center of your head, this light? It's like you're inside a room looking out the windows, outwards. Does it feel a little bit left, a little bit right, a little bit forward or back? How does it look? Does it feel bright or dull, clear or murky? Does it feel contained inside your head or free? So to me, I can imagine for the group, there is energy in there. It's quite active. It's a little bit off to one side. It's quite strong, but it feels like it's brighter in the head and then not as much, not getting out as much as it possibly could. So it's more, sometimes it's very concentrated and very mental and contained, like the walls, there's an enclosure around it. So you can imagine that the sides of your head are like crystal or glass and the light's not trapped, it's free to spread out into the room. So notice, is that centered or not? Is it radiant or not? Is it comfortable or not? Is it connected with the crown and the sun above, or does it feel like a separate point that isn't connected? If it's not connected, find the point between the higher lights and that one. It's like sitting on a fence between two rooms where you can watch them both and allow them to connect. Then move your awareness from the third eye to the throat. So as you move your attention from your head to your throat, and you're thinking of both points, does the attention move easily to the throat, or is it a bit hard to go to the throat? Imagine that you're as a light in the center of the throat shining back up to the head. So you can look from the throat to the head or the head to the throat. If the head's quite strong, it might feel like you're trying too hard to look down. So imagine you're a little person in the throat shining a light up through your head. You might find that the direction is easier from below up, for example. So these are just different tools, different clues you can use to help connect in different ways. You're looking at relationships. How does it feel in the throat? Is it bright? Is it dull? Is it centered or off center? Is it radiant and flowing or contained, choking? To me, for some reason, usually the throat's an interesting center. It often feels constricted in a lot of people. But for the group today, it feels quite strong. It feels quite refined, very clear and expressive. And that the energy in the throat, like a sun, shines out into the room a long way. Now, this might be the case for some of you, but for others of you, it might feel very uncomfortable, very constricted, clogged, hard to even get through it. If it's a little off balance, notice where you are balanced and be aware of either side, front, back, left, right, up and down, and it might start to come back to the middle. Then take your awareness down from the throat to the heart center. So we'll move through these a little quicker as we go, but I'm spending a little bit of time to give you a bit of time to start noticing what the scenery is like when you put the light in different parts of the body. And then as you move from the throat to the heart, does it feel easy to go to the heart, nice, clear, and easy to get into that space inside the rib cage shining out? Or is it a bit difficult, a bit hard to connect? So they're the questions you can ask yourself. By asking questions between pairs of opposites, you will find a description that somewhere in between that fits. It's either very contained or it's very free. It's either bright or dull in the heart. It's either centered or a little left or a little right, or a little forward or a little back. Sometimes people feel the point in the heart's at the front of the chest, not so much inside. Sometimes the back of the heart's a bit hard to feel, for example. Talking about the heart center, not the physical heart so much. Physical heart sits a little bit more to the left, crosses the right a little bit, but the center, heart center, you think of in the center, because we're talking about centering. So how does that feel? Easy or hard? Balanced or not balanced? Notice the environment, the feeling inside the heart. Does it feel a little bit bright or dull? Does it feel a bit comfortable or a little bit uncomfortable? Does it make you feel restless and unsettled and nervous? Or does it feel loving and embracing and compassionate and supporting? Tune into the emotional and the mental environment inside the heart, as well as the physical sensation. As I'm doing that, as I'm describing that, you might notice that as I describe certain things, if I hit the right description that suits your experience, it might start spontaneously changing. So as you're describing what's happening and not reacting to it, like just then the heart lit up a bit and it centered itself a little bit. I felt it center for the group. So it was a little bit muffled before, now it feels a little bit clearer. And it's connecting with the throat and the third eye and the crown and the sun and the source above easier. So these are things that some of you might struggle with initially to notice, but with practice and time and noticing the ease in some areas and the difficulty in others, will all start to become clear. Move your awareness from the heart now through the diaphragm to the solar plexus, which is in between diaphragm and belly button, round about the upper low back. Imagine a light sitting underneath there in that spot. That's the solar plexus center. Imagine it as the sun or a light inside the belly there. Is it easy to imagine or is it difficult to imagine? Is it hard to even get to as you move from the heart to the solar plexus? Or does it go there quite easily? Now, for the group, I could feel it going there. It's a small sun, small light. Does it feel contained and radiating out into the room? So 3 things you think about is how does it look? Does it look balanced? Or is it off to the left, right, forward, or back? Is it more like a cloud or a vague cloud, or is it focused, for example? It could be diffused. It could be setting light one side of the body but not the other. So is it radiating equally forward, back, left, and right, up and down? As you ask those questions, it'll either be easy or not easy. So you're not trying to look for things, you're asking questions. If there were a light there, can I imagine it flowing up to my head? Well, yes, I can. Can I imagine it flowing down to my feet? Not as much. You see, you'll get a definite answer to a question. It'll either be easy or not easy. It'll either be centered or not centered. You just describe it, okay? Does it feel like it radiates and flows? Is it comfortable? If you tune into the feeling inside the solar plexus, emotionally, mentally, does it feel free? Does it feel loved? Does it feel confident? Does it feel held in and a bit sad or depressed or worried? Or does it feel like it's confident, radiant, and expressing itself? Solar plexus is often the personal identity. It's got a lot to do with the topic of karma that we're talking about, because it's the center that relates to responsibility, desire, lots linked with desire, okay, and attachments. And so the solar plexus often it's like attachments are like little ropes thrown out from the solar plexus, attaching the self to thoughts, feelings, and objects, to relationships, to businesses, to people's reactions and everything. Imagine that the light in the heart's flowing down into the solar plexus, supporting it unconditionally with love, and that the solar plexus becomes a mini sun that radiates out with loving energy, unconditional energy, and it radiates out like the sun's rays, burning up any in-grasping attachments and replacing them with loving connections, which only have the win-win benefit for other people. So that's a nice visual image for the solar plexus. Imagine that it's connecting with the heart, throat, head, crown, sun. Energy is flowing in from above, flowing into the solar plexus, fueling it and filling it up. And as it fills up, it builds up some pressure against the attachments, melts through the walls of the body like sun's rays pouring out through the system to connect with the loving energy in other people. So you're breaking attachments and replacing them with loving connections. So as you do that, you might feel like just noticing and describing how it feels in that environment, whether it feels sick or comfortable, it starts to change. If it's a little off center, it might start to center itself. If it doesn't want to heal, but at least it wants to balance, you'll find that it will start coming back into balance, okay? And starting to at least come to neutral. Now, neutral is like the eye of a cyclone. It's like the safest place to be is in the center. If you think of like a whirlwind, for example, if you get out of the center and caught up in the periphery, you get caught up in the storm and thrown out, okay? So when it's out, it's hard to get back into the center. But if you find the center, you can see the storm going on around you and still feel calm. That's what neutral feels like. It's like you're aware of the storm, aware of the difficulty, but you feel really quite poised and at peace inside the storm, the eye of the storm. That's neutral. Now, neutral point is where you have a choice. You can allow yourself to heal, or you can just stay balanced. And that's enough. That depends on how much time you've got, whether your system's ready for a healing. I used to do this centering every day. It used to take me 5 or 10 minutes. I'd center each of the centers, at least come to neutral, and then I'd go through the day. And as I went through the day, I noticed after a while the activities and the interactions I got into that threw me off center in one of my centers. And as I went through the day, and then I'd have to recenter myself if I threw myself off. And that showed me also which centers I went out of balance in. But then I'd recenter myself and I'd go through the day until I got knocked off center again by something else or some other interaction. So that's how I started to learn that if I could stay centered in my interactions throughout the day, it's a good way to know you're on track. And it starts staying there and you start going through the whole day being focused and centered without getting thrown off. That's a really good skill. So notice the solar plexus starting to shift, starting to change, starting to fill with the love and light from the heart into the solar plexus, spreading forward through the front of the body, backwards through the back of the body. So you could add a little bit of time in here. Sometimes the back of the body represents your support system, or sometimes it's the links to the past hanging on. So if you imagine time, space behind you, imagine the light flowing in and around that, around, if there's a, let's say you think of what's behind the body and it feels pressing in and it's a bit yucky, like an object pushing against the back, surrounded in an ocean of liquid light, surround the time element. So your light is flowing forward, which is easy to imagine, by the way, for me. See if it is for you. And also then imagine it flowing back. So if I say a light in the solar plexus flowing forward and back, which way is easier? I'd say forward is easier than back. Left or right, up or down. It's easier up, harder down. It's easier forward, it's harder back for me in this moment. Then if I notice it's difficult, I think of the problem behind it's hard to go to, like instead of trying to force my way back, I imagine that like a sea of liquid light, I'm surrounding it, going back in time and surrounding the problem, which is like going under the ocean around an iceberg and wrapping the iceberg up in love and warmth, that warm ocean. That's surrounding the problem in time and space. The tip of what you're feeling now, what's under the water is what you're feeling from the past. Surround it entirely, allow it to be there. Don't try and do anything with it. Let it be. And then let it flow and be there and just be present and observe, which is like opening the door to the room and seeing the mess. You can see a mess there, but you don't have to heal it now. If you don't want to, just see, oh, there's a mess there. Surround it lovingly and wait. If it wants to heal, it'll start healing. If it doesn't want to heal, it'll just sit there. So there's no pressure to heal things you don't want to heal, that you don't want to force or shift. You don't want to force anything. You want to allow. But you can't allow if you don't know it's there. Now, it's starting to clear. You're spending some time on that center. I'll just wait until it cleared a little bit. And then we're going to move down through the body, through the lumbar spine to the sacrum. Imagine there's a light at the sacrum, a light in the tailbone area. And ask the question, does it feel centered in the middle of the sacral area, low back sacral center? Does it feel like it's a little left, a little right, a little forward, a little back, which is, where's the ease? Does it feel big or small, bright or dull, light or not so light? It's like a light in a room there. Is it comfortable inside that space, or is it a little bit uncomfortable? To me, it feels like it's quite light, but it has walls and edges around it. So does it feel like the light is trapped within the body, or is it free to express through the body? You can turn the body walls into crystal and imagine the light radiating through it and clearing up any murky patches. So notice the sacral center. Does it feel like as you're watching it and describing it, it's nice and centered and neutral already? Or does it feel like it's starting to allow itself to heal and flow? Is it connecting with the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, the crown, and the sun above? Is it connecting down with the root center below? So now you can take your awareness lower through this tailbone to the tip of the tailbone, perineum, floor of the pelvis, the coccyx area. Imagine the light at the root, the base, a little sun there. Is it a big sun or a small sun? It feels like a smaller focused point of light, this one to me, in the group. Does it feel centered or off center? Does it feel comfortable or uncomfortable? How does it look? How does it feel? How does it flow? Okay. Does it feel like it radiates into the room? Does it connect with the sacrum, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown, and the sun above? Does it communicate with the earth below? So now we take our awareness as well down to the earth, feet, as if you're standing on the pure, clear, crystal clear planet, the earth, in its pristine state. Imagine you're dropping a line to the center of the earth. Imagine both feet standing on the earth and the earth's glowing and you're plugging into it in a healthy way. Does it feel like both feet are evenly balanced on the earth, or you're more on your left foot or your right? Do you feel like there's more energy flowing through your left leg or your right leg? Now, to me, if I imagine the left leg for the group, it's easy to imagine. If I imagine the light through the right leg, it's a bit murkier and not as clear. So for some reason, one side, and this might be different for you, is one side's easier than the other. So if you get an area that's difficult, again, imagine light going around the difficulty and connecting to the earth. Do you feel centered or left or right or forward or back? Do you feel plugged in? Does it feel easy or hard to imagine? And then reconnect the line from the earth back up through the root, sacrum, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown, and sun above. So we're going back to our overall midline, healthy energy. Okay? And see how you feel. Where along the line does it feel brightest and healthiest and clearest? Now, I would say for the group, it's higher up. It's more in the upper body. Maybe head for some, maybe the sun above for some, maybe the heart for some. Then ask yourself, where does it feel the most difficult, most imbalanced, the most hardest to go, the difficult area? And I would say for a lot of people in the group, it's solar plexus. Maybe one side of the solar plexus might be left or right, forward or back. Is it the tailbone? Is it the coccyx? Is it the earth? Or is it all of them? Is there some parts of the body that feel clearer than others? So we're looking at our health and disease ratio. If you ask the body, ask your system, how much of your whole body, if you imagine the line going through and spreading out into the room as if you were a bubble of light. Imagine there's a big bubble of light going around you and you're filling it up with light from top and bottom or from the heart up and down. Imagining you're turning the tap on from the healthy areas, like you're turning this spiritual tap on and you're pouring in loving energy from the healthy centers into and around the problem areas. So don't try and force through the problem areas, but surround them. Imagine it's like a sea of health, filling up the bubble and surrounding all the problem areas in your body. Front of the body, back of the body, sides of the body. Wrap everything up in loving liquid light and just watch the interaction. How much of your whole body feels healthy? What percentage feels filled with light? Is it 55%? Is it 80%? Is it 20%? What percentage of your body feels filled with murkiness or dark or shadow or uncomfortable feelings or sensations? Just get a sense of the balance between the two, healthy and the unhealthy parts. Now, I said because we talked about consciousness between the higher and lower self, we might add in a little bit of dimensional awareness as well. So for some of you, that might be enough just to sit with that, watch the energy flow in. But remember I showed you a picture of a bucket of the personality, okay? And there's a light above the bucket. So what we're going to do, I'll just do this a little bit of a different way, something different. We're just going to use that image of the bucket of the personality, okay? So imagine that there's a big bright light, the sun above the bucket. That represents the soul, okay, the higher self. And imagine it's like the sun shining in the sky above the clouds, okay? It's always bright, it's always light, it's always healthy. So raise your awareness up above the clouds, above the personality, to the sun above the bucket. Imagine your whole personality, whole body is like a bucket, okay? And in that bucket, we've just analyzed in our bucket how much feels healthy and how much feels full of muck. So if you were a bucket, are you full of clear, pristine, clear, healthy, sparkling water, energy, or are you full of a bit of some murky patches or some solid patches or sluggish patches or dense patches? Where is the sediments most concentrated and dense? Where is the areas most refined and light? Okay, so you're asking two questions. Raise above the bucket to the life source. Lift your consciousness to the sun, the central sun, the universal sun. When you go up there, it feels really nice to me. It's like going out to the solar system and spreading through space and time. When you come back down the ray of light from the sun through the body, imagine that the bucket has three compartments to it. The first compartment is the mind, okay? So imagine your mind. You can do it a couple of ways. You can just think of the mind in general through your whole body, or the top third of the bucket if you want to do it that way, or you can think of it as a whole and just think of mind and ask yourself, how does my mind feel? Does my mind feel full of muck and murky? Does it make me go to my head? Does it make me feel concentrated, a bit mental? Or do I feel peaceful in my mind all through my body? Now, the mind is not confined to your brain. If you think of the mind as stuck in the brain, then your mind is stuck in your brain. But mind is everywhere. The brain actually exists in the mind, not the other way around. So your mind isn't limited to your brain. You can surround everything, your whole body. Mental energies surround your whole body. When I think of my mental energies, so we've done our spiritual energies, the source, the light above, that felt really radiant and vibrant and bright. When I bring my attention to my mental energies, ask yourself, how do you feel? Does it feel like your mind is peaceful or calm? Is it agitated? Is it ruffled? Do you feel even in your body or uneven? Where does your attention go? So we're going to imagine, for argument's sake, that the collective mind that we're talking about here is a bit murky. It's like a bit of mud, sand dispersed throughout the bucket. It feels a bit sort of active, vibrating a little bit, unsteady, agitated perhaps, over-concentrated. They're all common things that might happen. And then we're going to raise back up to the life source, like the sun above, and compare. How does it feel in the soul, the source, the higher self? Go back into the mind. Back up to the life source, back into the mind. Now, as I'm doing that, you're alternating your awareness between the higher nature and lower nature. Higher nature, lower nature. Can you feel a difference when you expand, lift above the mind to some higher, healthy blueprint, if you want to use that term? Then back down into the mental environment. The mental environment to me feels more murky. Now imagine that your energy is flowing from the source above into the mental energy, and it's flushing the mental murkiness. It's transmuting it. The light hits the murkiness. It's clearing the mind like pure water, like a waterfall flowing into the mental pool, a mental pool or bucket. It's clearing the mental energies, overflowing and then clearing them out, flushing them out, transmuting them, and overflowing health past your mind, overflow the bucket to everyone else's mind. You're not overflowing muck, you're overflowing health. The muck just dissipates before it comes out of the bucket. You're healing it within yourself. You're purifying the energies, clearing the murkiness, exactly like you're pouring fresh water into a bucket of muddy water. The more you keep pouring fresh water in, the more the water gets gradually more refined and clear. And that's what's maybe happening for some of you in the mental environment. You might be feeling that the mind there's still some murkiness and some over concentration and activities and confinement in some parts of the body, but you feel the energy flowing around it, in it, around, through, and flushing it out until it feels a little bit clearer. It starts to feel like just then it felt like the mind went from overthinking to suddenly just like a light switching on, like you're standing in the middle of the room, the light's on, and it doesn't have to think as much. It just went a little bit more still. So we've got soul and mind connecting. It feels neutral. The mind has now centered itself, you could say, and for some of you, and it feels a little bit more still and observant and present. When it's still and present, it's not looking at any one thing. It's aware all directions at once. Then we're going to imagine that collective soul-mind energy is moving down to the next third of the bucket. So we're going to imagine it flowing down into our emotions. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about our emotions. our emotional self. Now, again, we're not limited to heart or solar plexus. The whole body, think of the whole body as being an emotional bucket. Now, we've cleared the top third of the mind. Now we're sinking into the more dense, heavier sediment of the emotional body. When you think about your emotional body, how does it feel when you compare it to, say, the mental or the spiritual above? Does it feel like the water is murky in the emotional, or does it feel actually surprisingly okay? Does it feel mixed? How much of the emotional environment in your whole being feels murky and mucky and solid or congested? And how much feels fine and clear and loving and present? Do you feel anxious or compassionate? Do you feel peaceful or angry? Do you feel joyous or not joyous? Agitated? Do you feel balanced in the left and the right half of the body, the front and the back half of the body? Raise your awareness from the emotions to the mind to the spirit, and then back from the spirit to the mind to the emotions. So you're letting the energy fill up the bucket and flush down a little further now into your emotional being. Let it flow through the emotional being, spread to the walls, flush the muck up, transmute it, and overflow a loving emotional energy, loving, unconditionally loving emotional energy, overflow it onto other people so they feel the overflow of emotional loving connections with no attachments. So now we've got soul, mind, emotions all starting to blend. Notice if it feels different when you think about your emotional environment within your body and where. When I thought of the mind, for example, I went to the brain a lot. When I thought of the emotions, I still go there a little bit on a little bit more of what's happening in my heart and my back, a little bit more. It might be for some of you solar plexus or pelvis is where the emotional energy feels more murky. So we're thinking through the body on an emotional level, again through the centers, but this time your emotional elements. Overflow through the emotional elements into the energetic body. The energetic body's next. It's like energetic and physical. So we're flowing down to the base of the bucket now. We're starting to flow into the lower physical dimension. And the physical dimension has two elements. There's an etheric component, which is your energy lines, lines of energy, the energy double of the body, the etheric body it's called, and that's a lot of the time where the etheric body transmits energy from the spirit, mind, emotions into the physical body through the endocrine glands, through the nervous system, through the vascular system. So you're imagining that the energy is flowing into your bucket from the source, flowing through the mind, the emotions, through the energetic body, into the physical body, into the physical endocrine glands, which are the pineal gland for the crown, the pituitary gland for the third eye, and you can follow this through as these glands through the throat, the thyroid gland, through the thymus gland in the heart, to the pancreas, to the solar plexus, the ovaries or testes, the gonads for the pelvic energy, sacral energy, and the root center links a lot, they say in a lot of the textbooks and the theories, to the adrenals, kidneys, and the root, the spinal column from below. So we're imagining the energy flowing through from spirit, mind, clearing the emotional part of our buckets into the energetic and physical elements of our body, through the physical energetic elements, through the endocrine glands, which are harmonizing our endocrine system, settling our nervous system. The consciousness works through the nervous system. Life energy works through the heart and the vascular system. Those three systems, you could say, are the most important three systems of the body. And through those energy centers, through those glands, through those organs, the overflows through the endocrine glands are like little mini suns physically manifest in the body. And through them, they sheds their light on all the cells of the body in each of those regions. So you could imagine the light pouring through the pineal and the pituitary, illuminating the brain and the nervous system through the whole body. You can imagine the energy flowing through the throat into the thyroid gland and clearing the vocal area, the lungs, the expression, the communication channel between heart and head, connecting heart to head through the throat. You can imagine the energy flowing through the thymus gland in the heart center, which regulates the immune system. In the anatomy books, it says that the thymus, as a young child, activates the immune system and renders the T cells competent, renders the immune system competent. And it's because it's connected, I believe, with the universal love energy and unconditional love. Anatomy books say that as you get older, it's supposed to regress, but I believe that's because people forget how to love. And as you reawaken your inner soul nature, your inner divine nature, and you awaken your heart to unconditional love, win-win situations, you send out a healthier vibration, stimulates the heart, stimulates the blood, stimulates the immune system, starts to protect you. Now, when I'm mentioning that in my own heart here, I can feel that one needs some work. For the group, it feels like an energy starting to come through and congregate, if you like, in the heart and flush out any imbalances in our systems, the heart, the blood flow, the white cells, the red cells, and carries that life energy through the heart to the whole body. Heart's supposed to be, in terms of the textbooks, linked to the vagus nerve as well, so that resting, relaxing, and digestive system. So you imagine it sort of relaxing and spreading to the body, which it feels like it's doing now. It's overflowing to the whole being through the blood as the life sort of system. Imagine the energy flowing down through the solar plexus that works through the pancreas and the digestive organs, stomach, liver, digest, small and large bowel. So imagine that the life energy that's filling up the bucket, we're flowing from the source, through the mind, through the emotions, into the energetic body, into the physical body through the pancreas, and helping to settle the digestive organs. That's bringing nourishment and absorbing healthy life energy through our digestive system, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and physically, purifying those organs, purifying the bowel, overflowing through the organs, promoting healthy absorption of nutrients and life energy, breaking attachments, overflowing it with loving energy. Overflow through the pelvis, the sacral energy, through the reproductive organs, the endocrine glands, the gonads, reproductive organs, and also there's some digestive organs passing through the pelvis there. You can overflow that life energies into your creative centers, purifying the sacral centers, which relate to the masculine and feminine balance, relates to relationships. So you overflow that loving energy through your pelvis, overflow it through your connection to other people, to your relationships in intimate friendships, family, work, whoever it may be, overflow health through there to others. And that, to be balanced, relationship energies to be balanced, creative energies. We've got your positive and your negative pole. We've got mutual win-win interaction. There's no victim or victimizer. There's just balance. Sacral energy also, you can imagine it clearing not just through your creative energies in the present, but there feels like in the group a bit of a connection collectively to the past, because the sacral energies in the past related a lot to misuse and abuse of creative energy. So abuse, sexual abuse, any relationship abuse, verbal, psychological, physical, energetic, or emotional, whatever it may be. So you can imagine that the energy is flowing through your solar plexus, heart, solar plexus, sacrum, flushing out any present issues in those organs, overflowing into the past, the iceberg of the past again, wrapping around any past relationship issues, and then overflowing through and clearing those energy centers, clearing the organs. And then you can finish down at the root center, which is your connection to physical life, family, relationships, connection with the earth under your feet. And that works through the adrenals and the kidneys, excretory system. And so you're flushing your whole body out through the energy centers, through the bucket, grounding gradually through the legs, through the hips, through the back into the earth. You can feel free to go back up to the life source and bring it back down. But collectively, if we imagine the sun pouring liquid light energy into a bucket, it feels like the bucket is starting to glow, the muck is starting to clear, the heavier, more dense energy in the bucket of personality is more down at the pelvis and the lower part of the bucket. So we're getting down into the physical, energetic elements. And we're going to try and manifest that healthy energy all the way through to the anchors into the earth, into our legs and our feet, which it feels like it's getting through a little bit now. So it's like that energy pouring through the bucket of the personality is filling it up with liquid light, glowing liquid light, flushing out to the edges of the personality, physically, emotionally, mentally, and overflowing transmuting any negative energies into positive energies. You then overflow that energy out of your buckets, through your buckets, so you're filling yourself up first, to full, to the brim, overflowing any excess health out of your buckets to everybody else in our group here. So imagine that everyone's got their own bucket. They're all connected to the same life source, and we're overflowing health on each other. And if anyone needs extra support or help, the overflow of health is surrounding everyone else's buckets and supporting the healing process to clear everyone's energy, group energy. And then imagine that we're all blending together into a big bucket, group bucket of energy, healthy energy, and we're overflowing into humanity. So you can take this as big as you want. We'll just add that in because of what we're going through at the moment. Imagine we're overflowing health as a group through our buckets, heaven to earth, source to matter, through our personalities, through our energy centers, through our bodies, overflowing through the bucket to the whole of humanity and the whole of the planet, and supporting everybody else by surrounding and connecting with everyone else's health. Imagine the whole earth as a bucket, and we're helping to support the clearing of the whole earth. And any negativity, any difficulty, it all starts to transmute, all starts to blend in, it all starts to overflow. Those people that are willing to accept that and accept and allow the overflow will receive it, which will fill their own buckets up, their own individual buckets, which will help them collectively clear their individual karma, the individual muck, overflow it into the whole of humanity, which will support the whole of humanity to clear their muck. It's their choice. Those that allow the energy to overflow, you'll feel that a lot of people on the planet, for example, if you tune in on a global level, will start allowing that to happen. Wherever they are, they're starting to feel themselves feel filled and healed and overflowing with love and support. There are going to be those people that will not accept that. So all you can do is keep them neutral, keep yourself neutral, keep yourself balanced, not take on any of their muck, overflow around them and support, so that when they're ready to heal, when they get sick and tired of arguing with their own muck, they'll allow themselves to receive healing in the same way that the person stuck in quicksand stops wallowing in their own self-pity and difficulties, looks up and sees that the light's all around them from the beginning. And all they have to do is allow themselves to fill with it and help themselves out of their muck into the light. So now it feels a bit like there's this nice beam of energy from the source to matter. We're expanding out through our energy fields to other people's energy fields. The whole of the system, whole of the planet feels like it's a lot clearer. And just know that it's going to do some people some good. It'll help collectively raise the vibration, which will help to manifest in the future an earth which is in alignment with nature and the universe, and everybody can evolve in a healthy, interactive, beautiful system which is sustaining win-win for everybody. So sit with that as long as you like. You can keep it at an individual level. If you want to just work with your own individual karma, your individual and life energy, individual health and illness. If you go back to yourself as an individual being from the source to matter, think of yourself as a bucket full of health now instead of muck, and ask yourself the question, what's my percentage of health in my body, in my being now? Does it feel higher percentage of health from when I began the meditation? Or does it feel different? It should feel a little different, a little bit more neutral at least, if nothing more. Or for some of you, it'll feel lighter, it'll feel clearer, there'll be less muck. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, just clearer than when you began. And you can repeat this process, a daily process if you want. As you get better at it, you can do it faster as you start noticing things, but you still have to allow it to go at its own pace, because you can't force healing, you can only allow it. So I've spent a fair bit of time working through this to get to a point where everything's relatively neutral and clear. When it does release and let go, you'll feel the sort of a releasing point and sort of like a breath of life, like the ebb and flow of the tide. That life energy flows from spirit to matter and matter to spirit, filling up with the breath of life. So you'll feel the bucket, the whole personality, feels like, if you tune into it at the end, it's literally breathing in life energy, then overflowing it to others in pause, and then it breathes out life energy again, back to the source, and then pause. And then from life source, as it breathes out, we fill up with it, overflows onto the whole of humanity, circulates through humanity, then it flows back in, and the breath out and up to the source. So you get this sort of ebb and flow of the breath of life. So sit with that as long as you need until you feel calmer and more balanced than you did at the beginning. If you feel like you're going through any difficulties or any turmoil, hold on through the storm until it feels calm and balanced. When you leave any meditation, you want to leave either neutral, where at least it's centered and balanced, even if nothing's shifted, or you want to go into a healing where you're literally transmuting any of the old stuff and you're bringing in more health. So effectively, your whole personality feels like it's encompassing and expanding and growing and building. It becomes bigger and more encompassing, and the energy field expands to allow more health to flow into it. And this is growth on every level of our multidimensional beings. We learn to handle more and more life energies, and our consciousness expands to take in more and more of the whole universe. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed that.